Okay, good morning, Sheena. Today is the day that we will be, sorry for all the traffic. Today's the day that we're going to inspect all of the colonies in the apiary. But for today, we really need to get Ari inspected, treated for mites, and fed. Last week I did a mite check on her and only found one mite, and that's actually pretty good. I'm gonna treat anyway because I really want to make sure that this is the time where the mites are going to kind of explode, because there's a lot more brood in here, and I can explain that a little bit later. But I want to really make sure that we set Ari up for good winter success, and part of that is going to mean making sure that she goes into the winter with as few mites as possible. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Bear with me. I've got a lot to do, so I'm trying to do many things at once, as well as do it efficiently but safely for all of the girls. So just bear with me. Okay, so like we've done in the past, we're going to remove this top cover. I don't have a queen excluder on her, so what I'm going to do is inspect the cover to make sure that Ari is not hanging out on there. Because remember, we only get one queen per colony, and if we lose her this late in the summer, we may not be able to replace her. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake this. I don't see her on there, but I'm going to shake that to get the bees off. We're just going to set her there. Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I think we're going to switch the smoker fuel that we're using. That was not a good thing. Okay, so a few weeks back I went ahead and I put on another box full of frames, and I didn't feed her because she had a lot of nectar in there, and we were just kind of coming into a goldenrod flow. So I'm going to show you some of those things too, like what that looks like in here. So again, we're going to be very careful. I can see that there's no wax on this one, so I don't have a problem taking the one closest to the wall. But normally I would take the second or third one in. So she's not on here, but to be safe, we're just going to shake the little bees out of there. And I'm going to put this frame to the side just to give us some space. Okay. And we'll make some space with the rest. They're not being too crazy right now, like too pissy, I call it. And so that tells me that she's down there, she's being busy, and that they are busy taking nectar from the goldenrods. And I think even from maybe sumac and some other things that are coming up right now. So I just want to give myself some good room over here. They're not drying out as much as I would have liked, but they are drying out. And I want to show you something really cool on one of these upcoming frames. So the goldenrod nectar, and I think even some of the like the Jerusalem artichoke that's blooming right now and has been for a couple of weeks, has bright orange and bright yellow pollen. And so that's the majority of the pollen they've been bringing into the hive the last couple of weeks. And so I want to show you what that does. If you remember some of the pictures and video I showed you earlier in the year, I'm just going to check this real quick to make sure she's not there. Okay, if you remember some of the videos and pictures I showed you earlier in the year, what you'll remember is that the wax was really pale and almost white, but because of the goldenrod, now they're making this incredible yellow wax. And it's not that they're making a different color wax, it's just like, it's nothing about their bodies necessarily, it's just that the pollen, when it's coming in on their little pollen baskets, is that colored, and so it stains the wax, or as they make it. It's very cool stuff. So we've got a lot of burr comb happening here. and we had that last time when I did an inspection. So I'm definitely going to have to scrape some of this because it's making it tough to put the frames back together. And what I don't want is to accidentally crush Ari because we've got a bunch of burr comb on the bottom. So I'm just going to scrape this off into this box. At some point we will render that down and we will make some wax products out of it. Okay, I think I just heard a queen pipe. That's not good. That means there's more than one in there, I think. Need to do some more research, but I think that's what I'd be concerned with. It's a little late in the year to get a queen to mate. We still have drones, but we don't have a lot, and even if she did mate, she wouldn't have a whole lot of time for laying and building up her brood, but I have to keep my ears open. So they're doing a great job pulling this wax out, which is exactly what I wanted and needed them to do. Now, if we get into this and we don't have a lot of brood and we don't have a lot of bees, we might take her down to one box. It's not what I really want to do, but we may need to. And that just has to do with having enough bees to go into her winter, enough bees to keep everything warmed, all the brood warmed, and then the queen warm as well. She's going to stop laying pretty soon here in the next month and a half or so, maybe 2 months. And when she does, that means that's all the bees we're going to have for the winter. And so we need to make sure that she is well fed, has enough space for what she's going to do over the winter, and so forth. And so if we don't have enough bees to make a good solid cluster in the one box, we may need to just condense them down. I won't make that decision today, I don't think. I think that's a decision I'll make in a couple of weeks. Simply because we have a little bit of time. We're getting close to the edge of time, but we've got a little bit of time. All right, so here's another great frame where they've drawn the wax out and they're filling it with a whole lot of nectar. I don't see Queenie, and I don't see eggs on this one, which is not shocking. Let's see if I can do this and not crush any of the girls. Again, scraping this burr comb is not that big of a deal most of the time, but it's so late in the season that I really don't want anything extra in there that, like when I'm putting this frame back down, is going to cause me to squish the queen. So moving this so that it slides back in comfortably where it's supposed to be is actually a good thing. I'm actually going to keep this way. So I'm going to checkerboard these frames. They're doing such a great job pulling all this out. Looks really good up here. I'm not seeing any brood. That's not horrible. I've still got a few frames on this upper deck. Probably going to see it all on the lower deck. I want to hear that queen pipe again. That was really interesting. I've heard queen's pipe before in Miss Candace's colony, but never in this one or any of mine. So interesting. I've got one there. Oh, girls, I know. It certainly will dictate what the treatment will be like because there's no brood up here. Then we won't be putting any of the apivar strips up here, and that's okay. We also just really need to make sure Queenie's not up here. There's a lot of bees on this these outer edge ones, she may be hanging out up here. And actually, let's get a couple of these frames out so that if she is in there, I don't know if you can even hear me. If she is in one of these frames, we'll put her in this quiet box, which will allow me to go and do the rest of the inspection easily. This one's sticking, so it's definitely got some bird comb on the bottom. And remember, she's always been fairly elusive, so I gotta be careful. There's not a lot of drawn out comb on this one. There's some, so I don't expect she'll be here. And the reason that I'm shaking those bees in there, Sheena, is just because if she is on this frame and I just didn't see her, I don't want to start messing with the frame and doing all these kinds of things and, again, risk losing her. This is not what I want to be doing. One of the things that I'm going to have to follow up on, so don't take my word for this, but one of the things that I heard my mentor talk about yesterday is a mother and daughter queen in the same colony this time of year. And I don't know what that means in the bigger picture, because I was having some struggles yesterday at our open hive when he was talking. But I'm wondering if hearing that queen pipe, if that's not what I was hearing, that there's a mother and a queen and a daughter queen in here. And if so, I might have to do some fancy footwork and call my mentor and be like, what do I do? Because I don't know what that means in the bigger picture. So, eyeball quick for fat little queenie. I don't see her. That means she's not here. That means I don't see her. Okay. And when I'm shaking them off, so I'm just looking for some eggs more than. When I'm shaking them off, they're all going right back down into the colony, which tells me she's down in there, because otherwise they'd be climbing all over the place. So one more frame and we'll have this one done. It's been a while since I've done a full-blown inspection on this one. She was just so booming with bees the last time I was in here. And I saw her, it was just hard to get anything done, and so I just wanted to let them be. Pun intended. Unintentionally, but yes, let them be. Let them be, let them be. So, one of the things that I tried to do, Sheena, this year was, especially because she was so strong, was to see if I couldn't get some honey from her. But that just wasn't going to happen this year, which is not uncommon for a first-year colony. So we don't have to look at that and say, oh, that's bad, we didn't get honey. That's not uncommon for a first-year colony. I just was hoping that, given her strength, we would get something from her. Just didn't happen that way, and that's okay. That's okay. That's totally okay. So, what I'm going to do, though, is checkerboard these back. What checkerboarding means is when you've got frames that have blank foundation, or where the wax is not drawn out, what you want to do is, or what you can do, you don't have to, is checkerboard the frames. So blank foundation, drawn foundation, blank foundation, drawn foundation. And when you do that, what you accomplish is giving them kind of the framework. They're going to do what they want to do. But it apparently does help with getting them to draw out that comb. So that's what we're going to do. And after we put on the treatments, we're going to put on a hive top feeder. I'm going to show you what that looks like afterwards. So we still need to go through the bottom box though. right? So I'm going to crack this a little bit, the top box from the bottom box. And if you're noticing that she's in a different box, it's because she was getting so big in her 8-frame box. Whew, they got this propolized together good. It's because she was getting so big in her 8-frame box, I needed to give her some extra space. And so we put her into this 10-frame box a few weeks back. Good grief. They have got this thing buttoned down. Ah, there we go. So what they do is they take the pitch from the evergreen trees, like the pine trees and the spruce and stuff, and they create propolis. And the propolis is what they use to glue up holes in anything that might let in a draft. They are basically their own HVAC system, which is freaking phenomenal. But when it's been a while since you've separated the two boxes, so for her it's been, what, 2 or 3 weeks since we put her into this 10-frame box. When it's been a while, then they have sealed it. They've taken that time to seal it. So I don't know if you heard it crack when I lifted it, but that was just the two boxes separating from each other because of the propolis. Okay, and we want to be very careful when we lift this if we set it back down, because Queenie could be there. She doesn't like the sun, so chances are she's already gone to the bottom, but not a guarantee. Let's see, can you see that? Yeah, so see all this burr comb? That's what we call this extra wax on top. Not a bad thing, just not a great thing either. So what I'm going to do is scrape that off. They're not going to like it. It's one of the earlier ones that just dropped. Come on, sisters. I'm trying to clean it up a bit. Once winter hits, they're gonna draw all kinds of stuff. She actually her girls made some really crazy comb in the 8-frame box. I'm gonna send that to you. I want to wait a couple more weeks because I want to have the rest of the honey extracted and share that with you. It won't be from her colony, it'll be from actually my mom, or my auntie and my grandmother's. The ones that I said were keeping watch over her. Now the smoke, it doesn't hurt them, it just scatters them a little bit. I don't like to smoke them too much because if there's not a need to, then why? But when you need them to kind of make space for you, to get out of the way, that's a good way to do it. It also breaks their communication line. Okay, so what I want to do is be prepared, because if I take this frame out to start making space and she's on it, I'm going to need to put her down here in this quiet box. So we'll see what that looks like in a minute. Last few inspections on all of the colonies have been very quick, short, and limited, partially because I was just trying to let them make their honey, and partially because it was so hot that you just couldn't spend much time out here. So this frame is very full of honey. Ooh, and that side is a lot of brood. Wow, she is amazing, Sheena. She just is amazing. So I don't know if you can see it in the video, but if you can see shiny spots on the honeycomb, that's the nectar that they've been bringing in. And they will take the moisture out of that by fanning through the hive, and they will make that into regular honey. And that's what they'll eat through the winter time, okay? And then on this side, if you see all that yellowish brownish stuff, that's actually capped babies. I don't know if you remember that from my other videos, but that's capped babies. And eventually, probably based on the color, probably in about a week that's going to hatch out. I don't see her on here, but we're going to shake bees just to be safe. Just to be safe. And I'm going to say it out loud so that I remember that needs to be 3 from the left. Very active girls here today. Okay. Let's take this one out and see what we got. Fairly heavy, so I'm guessing it's a lot of nectar. Wow. The next frame over has a ton of capped brood. See some cells open, but no eggs. So I think they're probably just making this one into their honey. It's crazy what they're doing in this box right now. Okay, girls, move. Thank you. Sometimes you just have to go through quickly. And inevitably, no matter how hard you try, you're likely going to kill a few bees every inspection you do. I just try to be as careful as possible, not to kill too many. Also, being careful not to kill the queen. So what I'd really like to do is find the queen on this next frame so that I can put her in that quiet box and go from there. Wow, okay. So if you see all that darker brown capped looking stuff, that's baby bees. And that's gonna be adult bees in the next week or two. I think for the sake of not disturbing her too much, I'm not going to take every frame out of the bottom like I did the top. I just want to see where we've got brood and resources and go from there, because that's going to determine how many strips of the mite treatment that I've got to put in. So we're using one called Apivar. The reason I'm using Apivar is because I had very low mite counts that didn't justify doing a treatment. And even if it did, at the time that I started my mite checks, they were so low, or the temperatures were so high that I was limited on what I could use. So I don't know if you can see this, but if you can see, let me actually dump some bees here just to be sure. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it or not, but if you can see all those different colors that are in there, that's actually the pollen. What they do is they mix the pollen with a little bit of nectar and they ferment it, or it ferments somehow in that process, and that becomes what we call bee bread. And with that bee bread, they feed the babies. It's a lot of protein, and that's what they need for the brood. So I see a lot of bee bread and resources on here, but I don't see a lot of brood. My hope is that by feeding today, get her brooding up. She's got a lot of bees, actually. I don't think that it's going to be a problem for her overwintering, but what I'd really like is for her to overwinter as a strong double. Wow, and this is a frame of brood right next to the resources with bee bread around it. Oh, there's some open larvae there. Okay, that's all I need to see. And there's capped brood on that side with some bee bread. And open larvae. Get at it, girl. So Ari's doing amazing things in here. So that's all I need to see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this bottom back together, put the other frames in. All right. And then put the treatment on. And then after we put the treatment on, we will, oh goodness, girls. After we put the treatment on, we're going to feed them, okay? So we're kind of past the point where getting honey from any of the colonies is gonna happen. As a matter of fact, I pulled all but 2 honey supers off last weekend, and then today I pulled the last 2 off from the one that had honey supers on it, just because it's, you know, what these girls are mad at, but they made that drone frame all out into some resources, so I'm going to let that be. Let's get them very busy today. They won't be too thrilled when we start putting in the treatment either. So bear with me. Where's this last one? Okay. There's this one. Okay. All right. So. Can you hear that? It's just the coolest thing. All right, so we had so much brood in here that per the prescription it would be 2 strips of the Apivar treatment. So I'm gonna go grab those out of my bucket and we'll stick those in. This is a miticide that's going to stay on for, I have to double check the directions, but I think it's 50 days. And what you do is you put it in by the brood. And you just gently slide it in there. We don't want to smush any bees on the way down. And what happens is the bees push up against it as they're walking around the colony. And then they take this miticide and it gets on their body and they take it around the hive and it helps kill any of the mites in the hive. So not my favorite thing to do, but it's better to do this and save the bees from dying of the mites. It's gonna be interesting to see all this happen, but yeah. Anyway, so let's put this top box back on. And I really want to get them off there so that I can alright, so I'm gonna slowly set this down because we don't want to squish them, and then we're gonna move them. Just move the box. So we put it on at an angle and then move it like that, because that's where most of the, that's how we're able to get most of the bees out of the way without squishing them. Okay, so the other thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna feed them. Now, there's different ways to feed the bees. I think I showed you earlier in the season where we put a bucket of water on her, but I'm gonna do a different one this time. So I've got these feeders, and that's partially because I'm running out of buckets, but I've got these feeders that you get one side, or 2 sides actually. Oop, there it came back in. You can either put dry sugar in here, or wet syrup, or pollen patties, anything like that. So what I'm gonna do is just feed her really, really good with some 1-to-1 syrup. After about next week, we'll start feeding her 2 to 1 so that she can bulk up the weight of the colony, but right now we want 1 to 1, so she'll hopefully lay some more brood in the next couple of weeks. So we'll do the same thing that we did with the top box and try to get the girls gone. Okay, we can't see the front, so I'm hoping that they're moving. Okay, I'm gonna do that, and then the other thing we're gonna do is cap this off. I'm gonna run and get the 2 things of sugar syrup, but we're gonna cap this off just for a minute so we don't get any robbing happening, and go from there. Stand by. Alright, I'm back. So we're having a bit of a goldenrod nectar flow, so they may not even eat all of what I'm about to give them. But I also want them to start building up their winter stores, so just in case they're not out taking the goldenrod. So what this box, I should have showed you before I put it on, but I don't want to kill any more bees. So there's a hole right here where they can come up from the colony, and they can get into this bucket of sugar water. They'll drown if they just go in the water, which is why I cut up these floaties from pool noodles, and they'll just be able to float on them. So what I want to do is get them down a bit. I don't want them up here while I'm doing this. But we'll pour this water real quick. And like I said, this is just 1 to 1 sugar syrup. And they'll come up and they'll be able to get in those floaties. I'm going to cover that because of robbing, but I'm going to do this real quick because we don't want to reduce robbing. It's the time of year where resources are scarce on the outside in nature, and so yellow jackets, all kinds of little critters want to come and they want to steal food. So we're going to cover her quickly. We're going to put her top cover on. Come on, girls, move. Thank you. And then we are going to put her cover on, and that way nobody from the outside can get in here. So there we have it. So my friend, we did not see Ari today, which is okay. I would have liked to have seen her to give you a photo of her. But it was more important to just get her fed and get the treatments on her. So we'll check her in a week. The cool thing about this feeder is that I can just come out here and I can pop the top, and if it's empty I can just pour more in. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. So yeah. Anyway, there you have it. There's your Ari.